Hello and welcome back to the ROI channel, the channel that's obsessed with the art and science of return on investment. And what better way to spend a rainy day than to catch up with our favorite Patagonian rabbit here, the mascot of this channel. He's back. So much has happened since we caught up last. We're going to talk about almost the 1 year anniversary of the election of Javier Milei, the world's first overly libertarian president. We're going to talk about crypto with Bitcoin bouncing around 100,000 US tokens. We're going to talk about real estate and economic changes in Argentina and Latin America and whatever else comes our way. Mr. Mara, welcome back to the show. Thank you for joining me. How are you doing, sir?
Doing very well. Thanks for having me again. It's always a pleasure to be here, and I'm proud to be the official mascot of the ROI channel.
That's good. Well, we're glad to have you, sir. Let's jump right in. I thought we might start with crypto markets. Crypto
Mm.
markets seem to be a really interesting space. More people, more legislation getting out of its way, more credibility coming in with the likes of your BlackRock creating investment vehicles to invest in this type of thing, Fidelity jumping on board. You've been in crypto for a very long time. Talk me through how you got involved in crypto, when was it, and what changes you've seen from then up until now.
Um, wow, yeah. I've seen so many changes. I wasn't even like some of the OGs back in 2010, 2013. I started around 2015,
Wow.
and I
1 year.
remember that yeah, that bull run was pretty crazy. I think it went from 200 to 1200 more or less, and then it dropped all the way back to 150 or something. And of course I panic sold at 150 and I lost money, and I I still wake up sometimes wanting that amount of Bitcoin that I had back then, wanting that back because you never get it back. But yeah, then I left it alone for a while, I think a year or so or 2 years. And then when the 2017 bull run started, then I was back in the game, and then I sort of got the feeling, okay, I do think this is, going to have a longer breath than I initially thought. Um, and I had the additional circumstance that in 2015 I was still running a local business. Times were very tough, and was I had to say goodbye to the office, etc. I had lawsuits with employees. It was just like one big headache. So I didn't really have the mindset or the peace to start investing and start to deal with that kind of stuff. But in 2017, it was already a little bit different because I had foreign income. I was running a business in the US, and so the mindset shifted already, and I had a more open view to those kind of investments. And I started reading a lot about Austrian economics and everything around Bitcoin. So I really tried to read a lot of books around it. I mean, there was not that much available yet. That's also, I think, when I started using Twitter a lot, and that was really the space where all the crypto and Bitcoin people were hanging out, and it really started changing my view on economics, on politics, and on a lot of things. I was more always from a more socialist kind of background, and going through like all that nightmare of having a local business here, etc. It sort of clicked for me then. It was, yeah, this is never going to work. And that was while reading, Austrian economics, etc. That it all sort of clicked for me in combination with Bitcoin, and it just completely shifted my perspective of outlook for the world, and models that would be successful in it. And also, of course, thanks to my background as a Dutchman, that I have already been familiar with a very open economy, which is the Netherlands. And then suddenly that also made sense. It's like, yes, as long as they keep this protectionism here in place, this will never get off the ground.
Mm.
So yeah, for me, it was very useful, from a lot of angles, and of course also from an investment angle. I mean, it's been a very successful trade slash hold, because at a certain point after 2019, I did start accumulating, and I traded with like a segment of the like 10% or 20% of my stash, but then the rest I just started accumulating Bitcoin mainly, not trading as much. And I think, yeah, that, you know, if you want to have peace of mind and not be busy looking at charts all day, that's definitely the best way to do it, because crypto is so volatile that you know, you get pretty stressed out with, you know, 20% drops per day and stuff like that. So if you just don't want to deal with that, just, you know, stack sets and chill and buy more Bitcoin and don't look at it.
Yeah, wise advice. So when did you start blogging then? You got involved in Twitter around 2018, 2017, I think you said. You already knew about
Mm-hmm.
Bitcoin. That was the first time I ever really knew about Bitcoin was 2017, and that bull run got everyone's attention. I didn't pay
Yeah.
any attention personally. When did you start blogging and really tweeting seriously?
I think only, um, I think that was right before the pandemic, and around, yeah, around 2019, 2020. That's when I really started blogging and writing a lot more about Argentina, because it was actually in a tweet to Bowtie Bull, which is sort of like the creator account of all these Bowtie accounts. And that I just mentioned, you know, it's like, yeah, if you want to know more about inflation, this is how we do it here in Argentina. And I showed him like a shopping cart filled with, you know, a stash of like 5 months of food. It's like we buy this in advance and pay it off in installments
What that's,
to,
yeah.
yeah, in quotas. And then they contacted me and said, they were like, yeah, you want to write a guest post about, you know, life in Argentina and how it is to deal with, you know, high inflation like that. And that was sort of the starting sign, you know, to actually start my own Substack and start writing about that. So yeah, I've been doing that ever since. And
Fantastic. Well, it's been
it's
a
also,
great move. Talking about
yeah.
that, so life in Argentina is where you are, but it could be in other places around Latin America have slightly
Hmm.
similar takes.
Yeah.
We've had 1 year almost since you and I caught up after I think it was like the day or 2 days after the election of Milei. What's happening with inflation at the moment? What have been the biggest changes that you've actually felt on the street, so to speak, in Buenos Aires? Everyone reads headlines, but what's the
Hmm.
sentiment like? What's the current vibe on the streets?
Well, I think morale is pretty high. You know, people bitch, but people have always been bitching for as long as I've been living here, you know, 20 years, and they've always bitched about the economy. So that's nothing new. It's always about high inflation, et cetera. Now, that is one of the few things that people don't bitch as much about. They do bitch about high prices because, you know, prices have definitely 2x in dollar terms, and salaries have stagnated at the first half of the year, and then now they're finally starting to gain in dollar terms. So purchasing power is actually going up in dollar terms for the first time in I don't know how long in Argentina. But you know, salaries are still a little bit off from where they should be in terms of the normal average, which is like around $1,000 a month. Right now, they're more around 700, 600. But that's already a lot better than I think during Alberto Fernandez, the low point was $300 or something. It was seriously,
Brutal.
yeah,
Brutal.
brutal. They were completely slaughtered. And of course, those salaries are the salaries on paper. So those are official salaries. Usually people earn some more, you know, below the table or abroad, etc. But that is not known to the statistics agency. So they purely take those numbers based off of the official numbers known at the fiscal authority.
Yeah, that's
But
right.
yeah, no, so far, I mean, of course, poverty rates, those, it was really funny to read those headlines actually, because all those newspapers, they never bitched about the poverty rate being 50% during Massa at the end. Like nobody said anything about it.
No.
And now it's like there's this libertarian guy waving a chainsaw around. So now it's like, oh, it's like 50%. It's all his fault. And basically, it didn't really move. It did go up a little bit. I think the peak was around February, March was 52%. And now it's already down to 47. So it is actually dropping. It's not, all the headlines said, oh, it's 50% now with Milei. But yeah, it's
Especially when you
actually
consider the fiscal mess that he inherited, and he's done
oh yeah,
by
it's
all accounts.
completely insane, like what he actually has been able to do. We were on the fringe of hyperinflation. When he took over, there was like this huge billions of dollar debt that they owed to the importers that they had to package away in a sort of a bond structure that they already paid off now. So that whole time bomb is gone. They took away all the peso Ponzi debt, basically. They were printing during Massa at the end, they were printing like one monetary base every month and a half.
Wow.
So that's all gone. They lowered interest rates. They made it uninteresting for commercial banks to park the money at the central bank. So now banks are actually forced to lend to the private sector again, which is why we're seeing mortgages, etc. So all those things are very, very positive. And of course, the fiscal surplus every single month. It's been 10 months now that they've reached that, and they've met all the debt obligations. It's really, kind of amazing, actually, if you think about it, because I thought they were actually going to default, in the situation they were in, and they didn't take on any additional loans, and they did this just by slashing a chainsaw through the whole admin. So it is, it is pretty remarkable. I think if this turns out, the way I think it will next year, and the economy actually goes up and booms like 8.5%, what JP Morgan is expecting, then I think it's going to be one for the history books. And the only danger, like in the upcoming months, is going to be when they rip off the band-aid of the FX restrictions. Because
Yes.
right now we have the crawling peg, we still have a black market rate and a real rate, or an official rate, and those are almost converging. So I think the lowest, we just reached the lowest percentage in terms of spread between the two, and I think it's like only 4% now or something. So they're very close to crossing over, and I think that would be an ideal point where they could actually rip the band-aid off. Also, given the fact that there are now more dollars in the banking system than are in the central bank. So it's for the first time in history, there are more private deposits in the banking system than international reserves at the Banco Central, which is kind of crazy. And the interesting thing is they did this tax amnesty, and it was so successful that they prolonged it one additional month, and only 10% has been taken out of the banks. So I thought, of course, everybody's going to take them, they're going to leave it in for 1 month, because that was the, cutoff date was at the end of the month. I thought, okay, on day one, everybody's going to rush to the bank to get their money off. And okay, now I just have this laundered and then I'm going to put it back in my mattress. And they just, only 10% has been taken out so far. And most of that probably go into properties.
Yeah.
But yeah, people really stashed like a ton of money through that laundromat, because you didn't pay any tax on anything up to 100K, and you could take the 100K directly out the next month. So up to 100K dollars, you didn't have to pay anything. Everything above 100K, you paid 5%, and you did have to keep that into the system. So I think, like, I actually personally know a couple of people who really said, like, okay, I have 500K that I have not declared, and I want to put that on the books, and so that's all in the system right now. So it's like kind of a nice cushion as well, in terms of, like, there's so many dollars now in the system that the risk of taking off the FX restrictions and a run to the dollar is way lower because the dollars are there. It's like not that there's an excess of pesos that can be converted into dollars. There's actually um, not enough supply of pesos. Like the one thing that's missing the whole time is pesos because they just completely cut off that
The
emission
monetary
and
spigot.
the
Yeah.
exactly. So it's a very interesting dynamic.
Very interesting dynamic. I want to touch on a few things. So when the dollar blue drops below the official rate, is that green light for the removal of the cepo, which is the FX restriction to which you allude?
Mm.
Is that the target still, as I understand?
I think I'm not sure if it's actually going to drop below. Um, it could drop below technically, but yeah, I think once they cross or they're worth almost the same, which is we're almost there.
Mhm.
I think then they haven't said so officially because they don't want to create the expectation that when that happens, because then people can prepare and they can still be run on the dollar. It's everything. You don't want to have any plans just because if you do and you give a date, for example,
Mm.
people will start to calculate on that and try to make money with it in some ways because everybody's always calculating here. So it's if they take it off, it's going to be completely by surprise from one day to the next, and everybody's going to be like, "Oh shit!" Now this is a new situation. Um, I mean, they've hinted at doing it after the midterms in October next year, which I think would be way too late. I mean, why keep it in place if the economy is booming, et cetera, and there's so many dollars in the system? But then again, I think they're probably afraid of some shenanigans with it going wrong before the midterms and losing a lot of votes if the
Yeah, I
inflation
look
comes
at
back. Yeah. So
okay.
yeah, the only danger there is if they keep the crawling peg too long. They've had that a couple of times in the past, and the peso strengthens so much that everything becomes very expensive, and then exports become very expensive, which is already a problem right now with Brazil devaluating so much that Argentina is going to be vastly more expensive in terms of exports that at some point it's going to blow up and they have to devalue. That's basically the biggest danger right now, that happening.
Yeah, I want to talk about that. So the unwind of this, what would that look like? Because local purchasing power has improved so much in dollar denominated terms, there's more dollars officially coming into the system in Argentina. And Argentines, for the first time in a long time, actually are enjoying a relative strength in their currency versus, say, in this case, the Brazilian real in particular. Everyone's going to Brazil to enjoy summer, enjoy the beach and whatnot.
Yeah.
How much of that can go on before those dollars effectively leave Argentina again and you have
Mhm.
a scarcity of capital?
um, yeah, that is one issue, of course, that with and now they also took off more restrictions in terms of spending abroad, so it's easier to spend dollars abroad now. Um, Now the problem, and it's kind of like a weird dynamic because at the same time, when you look at going on holiday now in December, January in the summertime, going to Mar del Plata is like 3-4x more expensive than going to Brazil. It's like really expensive, and so the problem is for those people at least, that are in the tourist segment, etc., they're really going to suffer because of this strong currency, and there's a lot of people bitching about like, yeah, we should devalue because Argentina should not be this expensive, etc. Um, so it's like an interesting dynamic that's at play where I can understand both uh, both arguments. But if you look at the mean for Argentina, it's still not that expensive, over time. Everybody's just really shocked when they compare 2019, 2023 to now. And that was really the Alberto Fernandez presidency was really an anomaly in terms of how cheap it was. I mean, Argentina's never in its history been that cheap. And it's just like a big shock for everybody, including the local population, to see everything so expensive all at once in 6 months in dollar terms. It's just like boom, and it just went really quickly. So I think that's kind of, they still need to process that.
Sure.
And international tourists also have to do that, because there's like 20-25% less tourism internationally going to Argentina. um, I do not know if that's a worldwide phenomenon. I have not really looked at that. If there's also less tourism in other countries, it does seem to be that Spain is getting less tourism as well, etc. So it might be just a generalized thing, but there were many people that came to Argentina during those 4 years just because it was so cheap. There was just like, and a lot of those people, the cheapos, right now there's like, nah, Argentina is way too expensive, and the quality's not there, and I'm not going to go. So yeah, now Brazil is very attractive for those people again. It's and for Argies also. I mean, Florianopolis. If it weren't for the plane, which is kind of annoying with two baby girls, I would also probably go to Florianopolis because it is really excessive what they're asking in Mar del Plata right now. I mean, it's just like, come on, really? Like, it's seriously 4 to 6K for a house with a pool for a month, and
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, that is okay. Interesting. So
Oh,
I
and
was just
and I'm
about
actually in Pinamar and in the Mar de las Pampas, which are a little bit more high end. I've actually seen prices of like 4 to 6K for 2 weeks.
Jesus. Okay.
Yes, and it's like, what the fuck? I mean, for that, you could really take the plane, go to Florianopolis, and
Legit.
stay there the whole month.
The month.
And yeah, and it's, you're not even going to spend that.
Yeah, okay. So interesting. Some of the broke mads probably going over to Brazil now. I'm very happy about that. Less foreigners in Argentina. A little bit nicer to walk around the streets. Probably not as good for the economy, I understand. So let's talk. Let's put some numbers on monthly expenses on average at
Hmm.
the moment.
Yeah,
I saw you put or retweeted.
yeah.
So with and without rent, what is someone looking at if you were to live like a local for a month, like on a per month basis?
Yeah, so I think the thing I retweeted was really for family of four, private
Mm.
schools, all, car, all that stuff. And I think there you're really looking at, at least 4 to 6K, depending on the rent. 6K, would be with 1.5K, 2K rent, more or less.
Okay.
Um,
So that's
no,
a big
that's
jump.
that's what the yeah, it's like a family of four. Of course, you don't really need a car per se. So if you don't want that, that's like a big cut in expenses. Yeah, I own my house, of course, so I don't pay that. I think for my personal expenses, I was looking at it. I was spending around 3.5 per month now, 3.5K, and I don't pay rent. I do have a car, a relatively new one, and those you get screwed for fiscally because there's just so many taxes on top of those. And we don't pay healthcare ourselves. Like my wife's employer pays the healthcare plan, and that's 1K per month for four. Yeah, but it's a really, really good coverage. I mean, we can go to any kind of specialist or any hospital, and it's all integrated and part of the plan. So
Okay, that's pretty good. So have let's talk real estate then. Have people missed the boat? We've seen a 2x basically across the board, mainly driven by the real estate prices from what I've seen.
yeah,
EPF is the bellwether for the Argentine Bolsa. I mean, that's just gone bananas, up
yeah, EPF
150%
has
in the
been
last 12
so
months.
crazy. It's yeah, I kind of missed the boat on that one actually, because I was so wary of the whole backstory about EPF, and I was just like, yeah, I'm not sure where that's going to go. So I own a lot of Pampa instead of EPF, which has also been a very good investment. I think anything energy and commodity related in Argentina will do well. Those are actually the industries in terms of foreign investment and general investment. Those are the sectors that are doing best under Milei, because he also uh, invented that RIGI program, which allows companies to invest like from 200 million and up, they get tax cuts, etc., and a tax scheme for like 30 years, so they kind of know what to expect. So it's easier to invest. That being said, that is really the sector that has been boosted the most during Milei. If you look on a general basis, his international investment level is still below Alberto Fernandez. So it's not like everybody's rushing in to pour money into Argentina.
Really? So
And
that's
I think,
surprising. Where's
yeah.
who was investing during Fernandez's term? I was under the
Mhm.
impression there was a lot of deals being done in the shale patch in Vaca Muerta.
Yeah.
What's a man got to do to attract foreign capital these days?
Well, I think since Argentina is such a basket case in terms of economic instability, what I think is happening now is that people really want the confirmation in October 2025 that this is going to continue, Milei's model. So if they get a lot of seats, which I think will happen in the midterms next year, then I think people will be less shy of pouring in, billions of dollars. But right now, everybody's still like, it was such a shit show that he inherited that I think the vast majority is thinking, oh yeah, this is going to blow up. They're going to default or whatever, and it's not going to work. And then the fairness will come back, and it will be the same thing. Sort of that I think that's um, a thing that's at play. Also, what happened during Fernandez was so many companies were leaving that they still didn't finally leave until this year, for example. There were still like
I
companies
see.
leaving that made the decision 2 years ago,
Yeah.
and they were like, "Nah, fuck Argentina, we're going to go away." And then basically they only left now. And the funny thing is with the headlines, it's like, "Oh, they're leaving because of Milei." No, they made the decision 2 years ago. Yeah, it's
Yes, we love
journalism is
journalism.
so funny with that stuff.
God, that's annoying. But that is, you hit the nail on the head. When I talk to my Argentine friends, and I'm saying this is the time um, to get involved, and they say no, but what happens in the change of government? So how much? What's the danger here? So let's say we do get a change of
Mm,
government. Or before we do that, what are the risks of Malay
yeah.
blowing up? What would cause a Malay blow up, and how likely are those? He's got what, a record amount of dollar reserves now, so it would seem that things are.
Well, I mean, we do have to make a distinction. The dollar reserves that have come in through the tax amnesty, those are basically not the government's. I mean, they're
I
private
see.
deposits that are boosting the banking system, so they are available if people want to swap or whatever.
Okay.
But the government itself, the BCRA, so the central bank, is actually still, I believe, minus 500 million negative
Really?
liquid reserves. They are buying dollars every single day, like 200 million, and I think today they bought like a record of 700 million or something. So they're really buying up as many dollars as they can every day, and I think they've gone on for the last 2 months. They haven't sold dollars, but they also, had a lot of debt payments, etc. So it sort of levels out at zero. I think when Milei came in, it was minus 15 or something. So that has been covered now. It's almost zero, and the total balance, gross reserves, are now at 31 billion. So I mean, there is some cushioning there, but like the net reserves is still, could be a lot better in that regard. But they will probably make the maturities because 2025 is like going to be the first year where these maturities from the IMF hit, because before this they were only paying interest. So 2025 is going to be a very interesting year because it does seem that they're going to make all those debt payments without additional loans. They are looking, fishing for new loans with the IMF all the time, and it does seem that the IMF is now sort of on the fringe of actually handing out another loan. I wish they wouldn't do that because I'm just anti-IMF at this point. I would like Argentina to just get rid of them and pay everything off and ciao. But these they do people like Caputo, they do love getting more debt. So I think they're still kind of looking out for that. And you know, of course, it would help. It would make life less stressful for them for sure. But I
A
do think that
restructuring would, yeah, would provide some
yeah,
reprieve, and they should be able to do it on better terms, right? So,
yeah.
what's the central bank's balance sheet like in terms of the deficit you mentioned? Overall, roughly, what's the ballpark figure?
You mean the total deficit or the total debt in Argentina?
The total debt, yeah.
Yeah, the total debt I think was 400 billion,
Okay.
and it went down to 380 now, I think,
Okay.
more or less. So I mean, it's still last time I checked, it was around 60-70% of GDP or something. So it's, you know, it's still not over 100%, which would be, you know, kind of a problem, especially for Argentina. But you know, since most first world countries are over 100%, it does seem Argentina is now rowing in the other opposite direction, which I think would be very positive in the medium long term, because you know, all these countries are just kind of like going on with the debt jubilee, and everybody's just like, oh yeah, we'll pay it some other generation.
Yeah.
And Argentina does seem to start, you know, going into the other direction with all these surpluses. So that's very positive, and I think people are starting to understand now locally here, you know, that printing money, you know, that's the main problem always with the inflation they had, and this whole, you know, just handing out government seats to friends and family, etc. That's also not very productive and kind of an issue if you know 60% is dependent on the state. Basically, you're not going to have a booming economy, you know, with that kind of structure.
Yeah, you could tell that to the Australian public. I think they're the ones that need more of an education now. So what's
Well,
going to
I mean,
happen in the
does
future?
Australia have such a high percentage? Because I
Yes,
was, you
but
know, looking at Australia,
not
at
that high.
Canada the other day, and of course, you know, Canada is very woke, etc. But still, if you look at the, you know, senators and the amount of people working in government, it's still like lower than Argentina.
Yeah, we're getting pretty close to the dreaded 50%, and depends on how
Ooh,
you
okay.
calculate it, because some of it can be like healthcare and health support, and it's all under the
Oh, yeah,
it's all under the
got it,
lighting.
got it. Okay, now
Um,
then you're already in the in the wrong segment. Yeah, yeah, that's definitely
100%.
not good. Yeah.
100%. And debt to GDP looks fine. We got this big surplus, but the only way that we're currently doing it is by digging stuff out of the ground and selling it to China with no value add, plus
Mm.
selling visas and all these kind of fake spots in universities. And so that's where your surplus is coming from. If you look at the economic complexity and the value add, I think we dropped below Uganda. I think we're at 101 now. So,
Fuck.
you know,
Oh, wow.
there's that.
Okay.
But anyway, I digress a little bit. Um, you and I have been having some private discussions around real estate. I've got my eye on lots of different things. I'm not going to say exactly but what sort of rental yields would be standard for the capital? Let's talk the capital, because the other markets in
Mm.
Argentina are a whole nother ballgame. What sort
Yeah,
of
yeah.
rental yields for standard 1 year, 2 year
Short.
rental agreements
Okay.
versus short term at the moment?
Yeah.
What do you think I could get?
Well, I think you could get it's probably between 5 and 8%, more or less. Yeah. It's
Is that
not, you
like
know,
net operating income
yeah,
or
yeah, yeah.
okay,
Exactly.
that's
Yeah.
not bad.
So, you know, it's still okay. And I think, you know, if you take into account the capital appreciation, I think that's the biggest factor that you have to look at when making an investment. I think that's probably going to be the bulk of the return. Um, but yeah, the STR market is sort of back because a lot of these Airbnbs they went back to long-term rentals because when Milei repealed the rental law, it became a lot more interesting to actually rent out for longer term. And yeah, I've been looking at it myself. I mean, I have this one studio. You can get 500, 600 a month, more or less, on that, which is a little bit more than I would get if I would rent it out long term. I think long term would probably be 450 or something. But then you don't have the headache of managing all that stuff. So there's a lot of people who are just like, okay, I'll just drop it long term now, and forget about it. So the STR market has actually become a little bit more, um, a little bit better in terms of returns in the last couple of months.
Mhm. Got it. Yeah, I mean, but that's not too bad. If you're looking for maybe some income with an upside kicker, if you get
Mm.
inflation and your income gets eaten away, then presumably you'll get some appreciation on the capital side of things. So interesting. I think it was very good that that new supply of rentals was finally freed up,
Oh yeah.
for local citizens to rent long term.
Well, and it's I think that is the best example of one of the things that Milei always preached about during his appearances on TV before he became a politician. Just to let the market do its work, and this is one example where you really see the result almost immediately, because he did that in the first week of his presidency, and we're almost a year ahead now, and the supply for long-term rentals has increased by almost 200%, and the rents have actually dropped 35%. So it's actually cheaper to rent now, because people just were so uh, calculating in the inflation, because before they could only up it once per year, so they're renting it out way higher than the actual price, just to buffer for inflation.
Or just leaving it empty.
Yeah, and now they can rent it out in dollars. That they couldn't do that before, so it was always you had to get a long-term rental was always in pesos, so it would be completely watered down. After a year, you would have to up it like 200%, and then you would still lose money. So this completely changed the game.
Very interesting. Very interesting. And let's wrap the real estate segment up with this new idea of mortgages in Argentina.
Mm.
Can I get you're saying I'm getting a 5 to 8% return. Can I bump that up if I put a bit of debt on this thing? Or it's hard to actually get a mortgage in practice. What are the terms like, loan to value, interest rates, and repayment terms on these things?
So yeah, usually the mortgages that they're issuing now are like 15 years, more or less.
Okay.
So yeah, the monthly payments are going to be pretty hefty. I think upfront you have to put like 20 or 30% down payment, and then you can mortgage the rest. And then yeah, I think as a foreigner, it's going to be almost impossible to get a mortgage here, to be honest. If you're not a resident, because in terms of I think many local banks just don't want to get into that kind of risk, or they don't know how to deal with it, because even with locals, I mean, mortgages have increased like 300% since they started again, but there's only for Buenos Aires, I think there's only like 900 mortgages a month or something right now. And I think at the peak with Macri, it was right around 2,000 ish per month. So we still have some growth there in terms of mortgages. And I actually spoke to a couple of friends who were all in the process of getting a mortgage. So um, we're gonna have a new generation of "Me hice la casa con Milei." They used to That used to be a phrase. It's like I bought my first house with Carlos Menem, and now it's gonna be I bought my first house with Milei. Funny how that works. Like the only times when there was actually credit available, to the public.
That is incredible. I presume, are these peso denominated or
Yes,
oh yeah,
yes.
okay. Okay.
Yeah, so and I also wrote an article on how they work technically, because it's kind of like they're called UVAs, which is like a unit that they use that is adjusted for inflation, and that's basically the unit that you pay back to the bank, and that gets adjusted every single month. So your monthly payments also go up every single month, but it's always in pesos. Yeah.
Okay. So maybe a bit of a deval play on the horizon, or if it
Yeah,
doesn't,
so if there's a deval, then you stand to really pick up the profits in terms of your capital appreciation on the dollar price of the property versus what you're actually going to return in pesos. So you're actually shorting the peso there. And I'm into the Seposo constructions. So new construction is always structured in peso terms as well. And yeah, I mean that's kind of the same play, and I've been it's been painful in terms of since the peso appreciated, like every single month I have to pay more dollars. So it used to be the other way around.
yes,
But
you were the
I
king. You were the king of the short peso long construction
yes,
trade.
exactly. So yeah, with the Massa out of the way and Milei in office, it's completely different. And frankly, I don't want to hope on another deval because
Mm.
I think that would really hurt Milei's image. So I'm okay with paying some more per month if this is sustainable. I just hope so, um, because yeah, hitting that another devaluation and then a new inflation spike, that I think would be brutal for his image.
Definitely. And I think that was the sentiment when I was there last. That people knew it was going to hurt, but they were in favor of a longer term, more stable, more open economy and currency.
Yeah.
With the crypto space, we've spoken about it before. You've got Bitcoin. Are you interested in any of the other altcoins? And if so, which ones take your fancy?
So yeah, I don't really invest in altcoins that much. I have, very small percentage where I bought some Ethereum, but only because so many Bitcoin maxis got so bearish on it that I was like, okay, now is a good time to buy because these things always go in cycles. So basically, the first wave is always Bitcoin. Bitcoin rips higher, like what we've seen right now. We're in that stage right now. This happens every 4 years. It's almost like clockwork after a Bitcoin halving. That the
Oh,
year after, Bitcoin starts ripping through new all-time highs. Then there's kind of like a cool down period. Then altcoins start ripping. And given the fact that Ethereum also has an ETF, there's just going to be a lot of extra billions going in there, and there's a lot less billions needed to move the price. So I just think it's a matter of time. Now that Bitcoin's cooled off a little bit, I did allocate something into Ethereum with the play of, okay, once it close to 2x's. I'm not sure if it's going to 2x against Bitcoin, but if it does, or it gets anywhere, near that, then I'm just going to sell it back for Bitcoin. So that's basically a trade to get more Bitcoin in the end. That's one that I have. And then I do have some Monero, which is basically just an option for if we get full state surveillance on everything we do at some point,
yeah.
but
They
because that's basically
definitely don't like
yeah.
that one. That's got a lot of negative.
No. I mean, that's there's a reason why it gets delisted in all let's say OECD countries, because it actually works. So it's a privacy coin. You cannot see, and it's not an open ledger like Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. So you cannot see how much you sent to whom, etc. You cannot see how much there's balances are in any wallets or whatever. And it's also the coin that is used for the dark web. So all the illegal stuff you can buy on the internet on the dark web, that's all done with Monero for a reason, because it's just not traceable. So my play there, it's not appreciation or store of value or anything. It's just like, okay, if we go full dystopia in terms of CBDCs, etc., I just want to have some digital cash. So not to do anything illegal, but just like, I like the idea of cash. So I just want a small stash there, for an eventuality. But it's more and more that than anything else. So I just have that just in case.
Okay, so an insurance policy. Does that have
Yeah.
a halving protocol designed into it like Bitcoin
Um,
does, or it's just literally like an
well,
alternative secret token, basically?
that's an interesting question because I don't actually know if they have the same halving cycles. I know it's a Bitcoin fork, so they forked it from the original Bitcoin chain and then added stuff on top and made it different. Um, I do know that they have tail end inflation. So at some point, where Bitcoin is going to be fully mined and there won't be any more Bitcoins issued. Monero also has 21 million coins because of the Bitcoin fork, but then they have tail emissions at some point because their view is that you cannot generate enough on transactions alone, because that's always a debate in Bitcoin, that at some point when everything is mined, if the security of the network is going to be at stake because there's no more, you can only mine transactions from that point on, so you can't mine new Bitcoins. So will there be enough transactions if everybody is just holding it as a store of value versus actually transacting back and forth, etc. But so far we see that even though there's a lot of old coins in terms of they don't move, there's also a lot of daily movement. So I'm not sure if that's ever going to be an issue, but it's a different point of view of a network security basically. And
I think
another
that's
thing
the.
that
Go ahead.
yeah. No, yeah, and another big difference is that at a certain point with Bitcoin, you used to be able to mine it on any single GPU or any machine, and they changed that to make it very ASIC specific. So you need to have these specific machines to be able to mine Bitcoin, which at that time I thought was a vulnerability because there's only a couple of producers in the world that make these machines. Whereas Monero, you can mine that on a car radio. Now you're not going to get almost anything because it doesn't have a lot of hash power, but technically you could mine it on anything, which makes it, I think, more decentralized potentially than if you need like a very specific machine for it. That's also an issue with Ethereum, by the way, where that you need I think 32 Ethereum, and then you need very specific machines, or you need to allocate your Ethereum into a centralized pool basically to get the returns, to stake it, because they got rid of proof of work and they got proof of stake now.
Okay.
So yeah, a lot of different trade-offs in those networks. It's fascinating to read about it. All these. I still think Bitcoin is one of the best secured networks in that sense, and most decentralized for sure.
Oh, no doubt. I think, as I understand it, that's a lot of the use case for some of those forked or demerged altcoins like Bitcoin Cash and Litecoin, particularly, because I think more and more people are looking and understanding Bitcoin is a really good source of collateral and store of value, which is why people don't want to use it in it. It doesn't make sense to transact with it as much. But if you
Mhm.
had, say, Bitcoin Cash or Litecoin, we may soon be entering a world where they are used a lot more on the transaction side of things. And then you keep your Bitcoin for a store of value. And if you look at the Litecoin volume, trading dollar amount of volume, as I understand it, it's now outpaced Ethereum in terms of how much is transacted on in terms of daily volumes.
Wow, on exchanges, that's kind of
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
That's so crazy because,
But when you
like,
think
in
about
terms
it,
of, yeah,
I read something the other day which was quite interesting. I thought if you go back a century or so ago in the US, or even longer, you had more than one type of banknote circulating, right? So
yeah, yeah, yeah.
there were different banknotes, and I suppose it makes sense to have various different cryptocurrencies, and maybe you'd pick two or three that you like and you trust, and you use those.
Yeah. Well, the thing there with for example, Bitcoin Cash is there's just not enough nodes that make it, that secure. I mean, it's very likely that nothing bad will happen to it, or but it is more dangerous in that sense that a 51 attack or whatever, it could happen more easily with enough cash behind it. I think, yeah, for like those transactions, what they try to do a lot is those L2 networks, so a layer two on top of, for example, Ethereum or Bitcoin, to not use the expensive chain for a cup of coffee. And that's what the Lightning Network is in terms of Bitcoin, where you can just you can send, payments for a couple cents, and then you can do micropayments with Bitcoin. And then at a certain point, you need to remerge with the original chain. So it's basically a chain on top of it that syncs, at certain intervals with the original chain. But the thing is, at least like as far as I've delved into it, it's not that scalable. You have to open up a channel, close a channel. There's apps that do this for you, so you don't need to be super technical about it. But the thing is, like, it's not that scalable. So if you really want to have like a Visa kind of payment network, I think they would need to invent something additional or different in terms of an L2 network for Bitcoin.
Okay, it seems a little bit above my pay grade, but holding and stacking a couple of select coins is certainly makes a lot of
Mm.
sense. The miners, exposure via the miners. Are you into the crypto miners at all?
No, actually not, because that's I think it's one of the most difficult businesses in this whole segment of crypto, and especially Bitcoin. It's just so hard to time. It's so competitive. The machines are, getting better and better, and it's the hash power that they're able to keep up with. So the competition gets higher and higher. You need to keep buying better machines, and it's always a matter of, okay, when will this be paid off? If Bitcoin goes up in value, then it's quicker, etc. If it goes down, you have to sort of start selling your Bitcoin. It's very very complex, I think. But of course, with enough capital, they make a lot of money.
Yeah,
But
for sure.
it's hard timing wise. I think right now in the bull market, I think everything is going up related to Bitcoin because people don't really understand it either, how those things work. I think the mining industry can really make a huge difference for the whole energy sector, basically, because they use a lot of excess energy, and they can basically make sure that the grid doesn't get flooded, or at peak demand times, when they can basically give power back to the grid that would otherwise not be there. So I think there's a lot of potential for stranded energy or things that are not used. Like, for example, Bhutan is a clear example of, they just have this hydro energy that was just going to waste, and they just decided to put a bunch of Bitcoin miners against it. And now they have like a pretty decent stash. I think they have like 10,000 Bitcoin or something that they mined just with stranded energy that would otherwise just be lost. They wouldn't do anything with it.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And somewhere like Vaca Muerta seems like a perfect place.
Yeah, well,
It's cool. It's
EPF
got
is
water
actually
there.
mining
Lots of
mining
things.
Bitcoin already there.
Okay.
So
Is that a
through
big
flat
scale
gas.
though, or do you think more people are going to move into that space there?
Um, right now, from what I've seen, it doesn't look like a very big operation. I've seen like 20 containers or something, but I'm not sure if that's just one field or if there are multiple. But yeah, it makes total sense. I mean, normally they would just flare that gas up into the sky,
Hmm.
and now they can just use it to mine Bitcoin. So it's a win-win. It's an absolute no-brainer in those kind of industries to start mining Bitcoin with otherwise wasted resources.
Very good. Well, my friend, it's been almost a year since the new government in Argentina. Real estate prices have doubled. Your bonds you've sold out, you told me,
Yeah,
tripled. So that
triple.
That
Well,
trade went very, very well. What
yeah.
else do you want to leave us with, my friend? Before we
Um,
wrap it up.
well, I think for now, yeah, it's just going to be an interesting start of the year, and yeah, I'm super bullish on economic growth in Argentina, and yeah, I just really hope the FX restriction story, ends well. I think it will. I think they have it under control, and if that goes well, they have a floating currency. Um, then I think the midterms are gonna be an absolute banger in terms of the amount of seats that they're gonna get. Right now, the estimates are that they will get at least 50% of the vote. So that would be massive in terms of additional deputies and senators.
How will those votes be distributed? Because La Libertad Avanza is still a fairly small party, right? So will
Mm-hmm.
that be between them and their allies?
Yes, so that's between Pro and La Libertad Avanza. Yeah.
Okay.
Um, so yeah, no, I think if they can get to that unscathed to October next year, that would be a turning point where a lot of foreign capital will start flowing into Argentina.
Okay. Super interesting. And best ways to play?
Best ways to play, I think, still the energy sector, commodity sector in Argentina. Real estate, you can also get exposure through companies like IRSA, which is a big real estate company, commercial real estate here. They also have good ties with the government. So a lot of these privatizations and sell-offs of very good prime property in the city is probably being scooped up by IRSA, which
Okay.
is something that I've
What's
already
the
seen.
ticker on this?
IRSA, so
Yes.
IRSA.
Got it. Inversiones y representaciones Sociedad Anónima.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, if you don't have the time, or you just don't want to lose liquidity by actually physically buying something here, that is a good way to get some exposure to the local real estate market through a stock.
Okay. Very good. Very interesting. Guys, the Bowtie Mara Substack will be in the description. Make sure you sign up. Free subscription, a lot of information, nuggets of gold, nuggets of Bitcoin put into the into the publication. Let's take a moment, tell people about your services and what you do. How can people get in touch with you, and what services do you offer them?
So yeah, people can get in touch with me through my website. So I have a blog which is bowtypemar.io, and then I also have a website, bowtypemar.com, where they can book a private consultation, and that can range from moving to Argentina, how to get residency, etc. And I can refer them to immigration attorneys, notaries, whatever they need, and real estate investments. What are the best spots right now to look to invest? And basically any kind of advice in terms of if you want to move down here, or you're just interested in getting potential citizenship, etc., and how that process works. Yeah, you can just book a call.
Perfect. Definitely worth it, guys. Don't try and do it on your own. Thank you very much for joining us here today on the ROI channel. We'll be back with another episode shortly. Take care, guys.